Anyone who has ever read the Peanuts comic strips or watched any of the Charlie Brown and Snoopy cartoons will know about Linus and his security blanket. Over the course of several decades, his older sister Lucy and his grandmother try to get him to give up the blanket, but Linus refuses. He feels better, he feels safer with that blanket by his side, and he's not going to let it go. I didn't have a blanket, but I did have a favourite cuddly toy called Katie Bear. Most of us eventually outgrow our security blankets and cuddly toys, but what do we replace them with? Where do we find our security? Maybe it's in good friends and family, the people we know who love us, that we can rely on to be there for us, that we know have our backs no matter what. Maybe it's knowing that we have enough money in the bank, whether that's for the rest of the month, the rest of the year, or even the rest of our lives. Knowing that we don't need to worry about how we'll afford the essentials and maybe even the luxuries can certainly make us feel more confident and secure. What about the things that we're good at? Maybe how clever we are, how skilled we are at something. What are you good at? What are you known for being good at? Again, that can give us a sense of security, something we know we can rely on, something others will be impressed by, something that might even help us to earn money and respect, to increase our sense of security even further. Or maybe your physical health, being strong, being able to do things, being able to rely on our bodies to do what we want them to, when we want them to. A lot of these things are interlinked. Physical health makes it easier for us to be able to earn enough money, for example. Now, I don't know about you, but I think we often take these things for granted. Even though we find security in them, we don't necessarily realise how important they are to us until these things are threatened, until there's a risk of them being lost or reduced in some way. Our readings from Luke's Gospel and the prophet Jeremiah this week are both talking about where we find our security. Both talk about blessings and woes, or blessings and curses. Jesus' list of blessings and woes is perhaps rather surprising. Blessed are you who are poor. Blessed are you who are hungry now. Blessed are you who weep now. Blessed are you when people hate you and when they exclude you, revile you and defame you. Poor, hungry, crying and hated. They're not exactly on my list of aspirations. And conversely, but woe to you who are rich. Woe to you who are full now. Woe to you who are laughing now. Woe to you when all speak well of you. We're taught from a young age that we should aim to be rich, well-fed, happy and respected. These things should be actively sought out. We're even taught that these things are the meaning of life. And yet Jesus describes them all as curses. God's topsy-turvy kingdom strikes again. Now, I don't believe that Jesus is saying that it's necessarily wrong to be rich, full, happy or respected. They are good things. And I certainly don't believe that he is saying that it is good for people to be living in poverty, to be hungry, sad or hated. Such takes on this passage have been used to excuse and even reinforce injustice and oppression throughout history and even today. We should all be working to fight against these things. None of what Jesus says, or what I'm saying, is meant to minimise the pain and suffering caused by unjust structures. What Jesus is talking about here is where we find our security. If our security isn't in God, then we're scuppered. Because all those other things that we might rely on can disappear. We can lose our income. Disaster can strike, friends can turn away, our health and strength can falter. If that's where we place our faith and hope, then as Jesus puts it, we've already received our full consolation. But God never changes. God never turns away. God can always be relied upon. Those who may seem to have very little in worldly terms can still feel rich, beyond measure, if they know that they can trust in God's love for them. That's what Jesus is talking about when he says their reward will be great in heaven. They can face the present difficulties, knowing that they are loved and that the struggles will come to an end. It doesn't make it all okay now, but they will inherit the kingdom of heaven. They will be fed. They will laugh. They will celebrate. Jeremiah likens those who put their trust in God to trees with deep roots that will survive, flourish, and even bear fruit in the most difficult of circumstances, because their faith won't be rocked by what's going on around them, because their security is in God rather than in things that can change and disappear. It's a lovely image, even if we sometimes wilt under the pressures of life. Those deep roots in God can revive even the most weary and parched souls. Tomorrow is Valentine's Day. It's a day that some love, if you'll pardon the pun, but for others it's annoying or even a painful reminder of a love lost. You might be feeling really romantic, or you might want to completely ignore the day and hide under the duvet with a box set and a box of chocolates. However you feel about it, you are loved. You are loved eternally by the source of all love. God will never stop loving you. God will never turn away from you. God's love can always, always be relied upon. Whatever else we have in our lives, whether we feel blessed or if we're full of woe, may we find a deep security in the truth of God's love for us, for you, every day. Amen.